we've been taking, Corey, a little bit of a wider scope in regards to year in, year out expectations. I go back to 2016 and of course, Clemson's reputation since they've taken over the ACC from Florida State has basically been they have that one down turn each year. We just saw it a week ago against Boston College where they either get upset or they nearly get upset. I think what gets lost is that 2016 game, I believe it was 2016, NC State in Death Valley, where if you make a 30-yard field goal, it wasn't like even Clemson made a play. If you make a 30-yard field goal, Clemson is not the national champion that year. The game's over. They've got 2 losses. And there was just that window of time where you had the quarterback, you had the defensive front, you had the playmakers on offense that we now see playing on Sundays. How do NC State fans view that window of opportunity, and do they see this program becoming a serious challenger in that division against that opponent? And this is with Florida State being on the rails the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the 2016 game, I think a lot of NC State fans, that is one of the biggest, there's a lot of what if moments in NC State history because it's a program that just has this, the label of NC State stuff, or there's another term for it, but we'll keep that off the air. It also starts with an S as well. But
I appreciate that, by the way.
Yeah. That's one of those moments that is one of the biggest what if moments in NC State history, because again, like you said, that, obviously it didn't end up hurting NC State season too much because they ended up finishing, above 500. But that was one of those moments that, like, hey, if this happens, maybe Clemson doesn't become the national power that it is, because that led to their first national championship game, their first national championship win. And since then, obviously, have become the juggernaut that they are now. For NC State, they've been able to put together strong recruiting classes, but if you had that moment, that feather in your cap to say we beat Clemson, that changes the confidence of the program as well. As for the future of the program, again, like I said earlier, the hope has always been to build towards 2021. You didn't know if Dave Doeren was going to get there because of how bad last season was. But the recruiting classes in 2018, 2019, 2 top 25 classes for NC State. They had another decent recruiting class in 2020. And they're working towards another top 25 class in 2021. For NC State, they've always put stock into, we build in NFL prospects here at NC State. You build towards, those guys. You don't always have those 5-star guys coming in that are just going to be that elite talent. But if you come to NC State as a high 3-star prospect, you come to NC State as a 4-star prospect, you're going to be built into, an NFL caliber prospect. The thing now is being able to put those all over the field, like a lot of these national powerhouses do. And for NC State, they feel really good about where they are offensively, defensively, but they have to put it together this year, finish off strong, and then go into 2021 with a lot of confidence and say, hey, Clemson's more than likely going to be without Trevor Lawrence. Yes, they have a lot of young prospects, but NC State feels really good about where they're at from a talent standpoint, experience standpoint going into next year. So next year is the hope to be able to finally break through in the Atlantic Division. But again, that's easier said than done because we've seen what Clemson's able to do year in and year out on a constant basis and be able to get to the ACC championship and win it.
Miami has its own legacy narrative, of course, near dominance or dominance for 30 years, almost that entire time. And then the last 15 years has been pretty marginal. They've got some hope with the Eric King at quarterback. They're 5-1. I don't know how much of the Canes you've seen, but your impressions of how good this football team is.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with what Manny Diaz has been able to do. Manny Diaz, a former NC State, assistant, actually back during the Chuck Amato era. He helped put together one of the best NC State defenses that 2002 season. That was his first year ever as an actual assistant. He was a grad assistant prior to that. So I'm really impressed with what Manny Diaz has been able to do. Obviously, they had the hiccup against Clemson. They haven't looked especially strong since then. And I think that's something that NC State's going to have to latch onto and find what Virginia did that was successful, because they ended up winning that game, but it was a 19-14 win over a team that was a little bit down without their quarterback. So your hope is that you're able to do that exact same thing. And I keep bringing up the word hope, but that's all NC State can really latch onto going into this game, because we know just how good Miami can be. if you allowed them to get that offense on the field. You allowed a guy like Doeren King to feast against you. So they have to be able to limit what he's able to do as a rusher, force them to put the ball down the field. We've seen Doeren King make some mistakes in the pocket. He's been sacked 16 times so far this season. So for NC State, you have to be able to get to him, apply pressure, and not break contain, because that was one of the big things they did against UNC that ended up becoming an issue, was over pursuing, allowing a guy like Sam Howell to break contain. He rushed for a touchdown on what should have been an easy stop behind the line of scrimmage, but it was over pursued by one of NC State's linebackers. So you have to be able to make the plays that are in front of you, and not allow this Miami team to really jump out to a big lead, because NC State's offense is going to be limited to what they're able to do, regardless of who's under center, without Devin Leary being the quarterback.
NC State, a 10-point underdog at home. Corey had to remind me, Friday night, so set the reminder there. Friday night this week for NC State in Miami. Thank you so much for taking in my discussion with Corey concerning Dave Doeren's tenure at North Carolina State. For coverage of the Wolfpack and their matchup with Miami on Friday night, go to our Miami channel, the Voice of College Football Miami, and check out our NC State Miami preview.